Hello there, Adam Bazalgette here, founder of SW Golf Academy. Today, how to stop hooking the golf ball, tips that will help you hit the ball straight. We'll look at briefly at what causes the hook. We'll look at some cures. We'll give you 2 drills, and at the end of the video, we'll look at some common pitfalls that get people into this hook pattern. So what are the causes of a hook? We'll look closely at the dynamic, if you like, of a thing. We're going to touch on a couple of things that are common pitfalls of people that hit hooks later in the video. Let's have a close-up look, though, at exactly what is ultimately causing the ball to turn that way. Well, simply stated, if that's the target line, if the club face is closed, assuming solid contact coming in, you are going to hook it. Now, it has to be closed in relation to the direction you're swinging in, not just in relation to the target line, but it's highly unlikely someone hooking it is swinging this way, or the golf ball wouldn't even stay on the golf course. So most hookers are swinging too far to the right, but if in relation to the direction you're swinging in, the face is turned or closed, the ball will start left of where you're swinging and hook. So the real key here is better body motion, particularly through your core, but in addition, your upper trunk as well. The more open, the more turned, the more weight shift, the more dynamically engaged you are, the less the club will tend to flip and release. Now, we do want the club to release. Anyone that has a decent grip and is going to hit the ball any distance, there should be some decelerating of the body and some snap of the club. But for the person hooking it, they have to minimize this a little bit. So you really have to get the feeling for engaging your body there. Let's have a look at a couple of swings in slow motion. Then we'll get out and look at our 2 drills. And at the end of the video, again, we're going to look at common pitfalls that lead people to hooking that you might want to address, particularly in your backswing. So as you look at me hitting this shot here, you'll see the lower body start to drive, leading the hands and arms, and through impact, the hands well ahead of the golf ball. And when you lean the shaft like that, it is much, much easier to keep the club face from closing down. Okay, a couple of things I want you to notice here. Number one, obviously the hips turning, we touched on that, but see how that keeps that trail wrist bent. And number two, even though the club head's still coming slightly from the inside, the grip end of the club, or my glove, is beginning with that turn to arc back towards me a little bit. You can see the glove getting, at least from this standpoint, visually closer to me. Those 2 factors, the bent trail wrist, the body turning, pulling the hands towards it, make it far easier to keep the club face square. So drill number 1, overdo something. Get the club feeling open through contact. Hit yourself some fades and you start to feel it. Now, just as a mental picture, if I had this bag is up opposite my front foot here, if I with some force had to really hit this bag hard, but I had to hit it with the shaft of the club, not the face, in other words, the face wide open, you think for yourself, there's no way I'd be doing that. I'd have to move more to keep that part of the club forward. It's the same principle, just in miniature here with a golf ball. So hit some shots on a fairly small scale. I have an 8-iron here, but you don't want to use it. That's about as lofted as a club as you want to use. It's hard to curve the ball much with a pitching wedge, let's say. So 7, 8, maybe even 6, and hit some small shots. I'm going to really get a feel just that I really drive my hips open. And that was a nice cut shot off there to the right. And I'm also, once I get fairly good or fairly confident, I can get that face more open through the ball. Obviously, you'd start to dial it back and hit straight shots at some point. But once I'm confident I can use this enough to keep the face open, I'll start to feel the grip end of the club, as we showed you in slow motion, start to work a little bit more to the left. Let's feel it here. So I'm going to feel like I pull it that way a little bit. That's the feeling. Feel the opposite, you start to get the sense of what you need some of. Let's look from here. Drill number 2 is what we call a hit and hold. Let's keep going with the 8-iron here. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to have a mid-sized backswing, but I am going to try to hit this reasonably hard. And the goal is, can I stop the club as quickly as possible after impact? And in order to do that, that club's heavy at high speed. In order to do that, you are going to have to squeeze, use your hips, and not just turn them, push them up and get dynamic with them. Let me try one here. Let's get sure I'm facing you there. All right, little rehearsal backswing. Like that. And just stop that club as quickly as you can. I could really feel, I can do it better than that, I think. I think that was too long a follow through for what we're saying. I could really feel, though, some squeeze and some energy here that gives me control of the club shaft. Here we go. That's the feeling right there. You just have to dial it in and out at a speed you can manage it. I've done this drill quite a bit, so I'm kind of used to it, but that will teach you the feeling of supporting the club and using your body properly, which again is crucial for not letting the club close. Okay, number one, if you go back, if in your backswing the club face is really, really de-lofted and shut, unless you're a highly skilled player that can really drop it in and really work those hips, a Lee Trevino type golfer, Dustin Johnson or something like that. I'm not, so probably you aren't either if you're watching this video. If it's just really shut, the better golfer is going to try to find their way back and get the loft back on the club, and it tends to get the body motion stuck. Sometimes they can hold it open, but frequently the body motion fighting the club face isn't so good. So this isn't a lesson on grip, but you have to check that, and you have to make sure that it's reasonably square going back and not too shut. The second pitfall I often see, very similar overall, and that is, even if the face is good, the plane's excessively steep coming down. And again, a poorer golfer usually will just cut right across it, often hitting slices. The better player will almost always fight their way back to get a decent look at the back of the ball, but it usually leaves them a bit stuck with the body. So if the backswing's on a decent plane, the club, it doesn't have to be perfect, club face is reasonably square, you pretty much have a green light to work on the things we've talked about. I hope this helps you. Thanks for tuning in.